Welcome back to the Comics Report for another honest comic book review. And boy, have I got a treat for you today. Juvenile number 2. Wow. So issue 1 was indeed my book of the week, probably one of my books of the month. It's written and illustrated by visionary filmmaker Jesús Orellana, who did Rosa. And for me, Juvenile number 1 was a breath of fresh air I think comics need. It's out from Image, and I absolutely loved it, which is why I want to take a look at issue 2. Now, before I get into the review, much like the first issue, the entire issue is full page panels. 4 panels, full page, every single page, very cinematic, and it works a treat. This book is just a pleasure to look at, a pleasure to read. It's nothing short of stunning. So you probably guess this is going to be a very positive review, but this book deserves it. It's my absolute favourite. It's one of the few books in recent times I've literally wanted to jump up and punch the air with excitement of how good it was when I got to the end. So a little bit of history. So it's set in a future where a deadly virus has killed everyone upon reaching adulthood. So when you hit 18, you die. And because of that, teenagers have been confined to these massive medical facilities, basically prisons, until a mysterious new patient, Max, arrives. He's a bit of a tearaway, right? He's a bit of a bad boy, and he's special because he actually has these special powers. At the end of the last issue, he was in the rafters of one of the rooms, and he was doing something with a spoon. Not quite sure what he was doing with the spoon, and it fell. And Sarah, this is the female protagonist in the book, witnessed it, but it didn't hit the floor. We used his powers and it floated so that they weren't discovered. So leading straight on from that, in issue 2, she confronts him about it. But he doesn't really want to give up the goods. So all the way through, you get these green thought bubbles, which come into play later. But they're jarring heads. They're not really getting on, but they are. You can see there's a little romance blossoming through here. She's kind of falling for him. She's wondering about the colour of his eyes and everything else, but she's angry at him too. So they're both really strong characters. And I love it. Again, look at this art. It is absolutely stunning. Anyway, he decides to befriend her. And she decides she wants to know the truth, but he doesn't want to tell her. So he says, look, I've got this. This is my family heirloom. It's the only thing I have left of my mother. My father was a terrible, terrible person. I grew up. It was a horrible, horrible childhood. He has the same. He was abandoned when he was a baby, pretty much. So he understands. She says, listen, I'm going to drop this. And if you let it smash on the floor, okay. But if you do have powers, stop it from smashing on the floor. You know, it's up to you. You know, reveal yourself or don't. So she lets it go. Takes a deep breath, and sure enough, he stops from smashing on the floor. So they're starting to bond here. Anyway, he explains to her that because, like I say, when they hit 18, they're basically lobotomized, you know, and these tablets are supposed to keep them alive longer. I'm not quite sure, but they have to take these tablets as part of the program. But he says, listen, I've stopped taking them ages ago, 3 weeks. And she says, well, you could have died. You could have died because without these pills, they're supposed to die. And he said, well, that was the game. So he actually wanted to commit suicide, which is quite dark, right? But he says, listen, I've never felt so more alive. And she's like, but what, you know, what a risk. And she's also sort of frightened at the fact that, you know, he was in a position where he wanted to kill himself. Anyway, he says, listen, I've got other powers too. I can read minds for other juveniles. The adults are a little bit more hazy. I get feelings rather than full thoughts. So he explains by revealing some details about the jock and the sort of princess, as he calls her, of the facility. And while she's thinking things, she says, wait a second, he can also read my thoughts. And he goes, of course I can. So he's answering what she's thinking. And then he realizes that, you know, she realizes that he can actually read her mind. So there's a little tuffle with the, you know, the jock. He trips him up playing football, and he then uses his powers to trip him up too, which is a little bit dangerous because he could have got caught. And then we're in the dorm room with the other girls, and one of them is reaching 18. So they're kind of saying that, goodbye to her because once you're 18, they vanish, they disappear, they're lobotomized, they die, essentially. She's very frustrated with all of this, so she storms into the boys' room while he's getting changed to chat to Max, and he says, listen, stop taking the pills. So the very next morning, she decides to not take the pills. And that night, while she's dreaming, Max enters her dreams and they have a conversation, and they see these sort of like somewhat bright coloured stars. And he says, I don't think they're stars. I think they are others like us, which is really, really interesting. They're in this weird floaty dreamscape, so they can now communicate and interact in this dreams, which is so cool. I absolutely love it. The art is stunning. You really feel like you're floating in there with them. Anyway, the next morning, she wakes up to find that she can also read minds. So these pills are suppressants. So the story that's building here is that maybe there was an experiment now, and these juveniles, they have powers, and the adults are scared of those powers. So the adults are trying to basically stop them from taking over, basically. So she goes into the bathroom to see, well, if I can read minds, maybe I can move objects just like Max does. And sure enough, she can. But she's discovered, one of the other girls sees her and runs away. And that's the end of the book. Oh my God, this is so good. So, so good. Please pick it up. Please read it. I absolutely love it. There is nothing bad about this book. It doesn't miss a step. Art, style, this cinematic approach is just pure joy. I love this book. The only bad thing about it is that it's only 5 issues, and that is just not enough for me. I cannot recommend it enough. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm just scrolling through the art here back to this amazing cover. Let me know yours in the comments, and hopefully we'll catch you in the next one.